Once more.
Ah, you speak with such heavy accent. Let's say it one more time. Доброе утро. Together. Доброе утро. Wonderful. Very welcome to Moscow. My name is Lydia.
Hi, Lydia.
Lidia. And I will be your guide for today. I'm from Moscow. And my last name is Usikova. I don't think you need it. Anyway, you will not remember it anyway. But if you remember Lydia, it will be very nice because I will be with you the whole day today. And I will say goodbye to you at the train station before the train leaves at 7:40. The train leaves from here. And first of all, I would like to ask you, are you comfortable on the bus?
Yes.
You have enough air, you're comfortable, you can see well, because this bus is going to be our hotel for today. We shall be using it, it will be one and the same bus, and the driver's name is Dima, D-I-M-A, so he will be in his, I hope, reliable hands the whole day. And first of all, I would like to, and we also have, you have wonderful Anastasia. She's from St. Petersburg. She's a wonderful colleague of mine. We know each other well, and we have good understanding. Though she comes from St. Petersburg, I'm from Moscow, and there is a little rivalry between Moscow and St. Petersburg. I wanted to ask you, when did you arrive in Russia? Yesterday?
This morning.
This morning. Then I have to thank you for coming to Moscow, because you have so little time in Russia, and you allocated your precious time to come to Moscow and spend the whole day here, which is for you a lot of time. But for usual traveler, of course it's not enough, let's put it this way, because Moscow is a big city. First of all, it's the oldest in Russia. It was founded in the 12th century. And of course it has a lot of history, a lot of architecture, a lot of wonderful buildings to see. And for one day, it's very hard to see the whole of it. That's why when I planned my trip, I decided, I mean your trip here, I decided to show you the highlights of the city. And Moscow having 12 million people, 12 million people, and the area of 220 acres. It's sometimes hard to get from one place to the other. It takes more than 2-3 hours, can you imagine? But still, we are optimists. That's why I'm planning to show you at least 99%. And 1% we shall leave for your possible next trip to Russia. I hope Moscow visit will be a good motivation. And I will give you the plan, what we do the whole day. And the only thing I wanted to tell you, that it's going to be guided tours with me, and they need to be organized, you understand. That's why we keep together. When we do stops, we are not late. Yes, agreed? Yeah. If somebody is late for 1 minute, he will sing in Russian. For 2 minutes, he will sing and dance Russian dance. And for 3 minutes, he will sing and dance, but on the parking lot. How about it? I sound very brutal, I know. But today is really important day for us. I want to show you the best and a lot of things. So, we start our visit to Moscow with a visit to the main square of the city, which is called Red Square. In Russian, we pronounce it as Krasnaya Ploshchad. Krasnaya Ploshchad, or Red Square. In Russian, red, not only color, but beauty. Beautiful square, in other words. This is how it should be interpreted, the name. And this place is very famous, historical square, started in the 15th century, was very famous in Soviet times. You probably heard about it, about famous military march pasts and parades and manifestations we had on Red Square when it was richly decorated with slogans, with many political slogans when we have Soviet regime. And probably you remember pictures, Russian leaders were standing on certain elevation, a reviewing stand, and they were watching the people to pass by. This is the place we are going right now, and it's like introduction of Moscow. And we plan to spend there some time because Red Square requires your attention. And I'm going to tell you everything about the square. You will be taking pictures. You will see famous St. Basil's Cathedral. And not only this, I will give you some free time so that you could walk around a little bit on your own, maybe do some little shopping if you feel like. We shall be visiting one of the biggest shopping malls in Moscow, but of course it's not for shopping, but for a visit, because the place itself is famous and historical. So we plan to be on Red Square practically the whole first part of your trip. And after this, we shall have a little break. We shall have a coffee break where you will have tea or coffee at your choice with some little cookies. I know you are not hungry now, but sometime later probably you would want to sit down, relax and have some coffee. It will not be a very long one, some maybe 20-25 minutes, not more. And then we continue our tour. And I, ladies and gentlemen, want you to remember one thing. We are planning to have this coffee break at 2:30. This is Moscow time, which is same as St. Petersburg time, so time now is 1 o'clock, Moscow time. And why I want you to remember this? Because you are in Moscow, it's a strange city, it might happen somebody get lost, I hope not. But just know that the group will be in the Hotel Metropole. Metropole, will you remember this? This is the centrally located hotel not far from Red Square. And there we plan to be from 2 o'clock, from 2:30 until 3 o'clock. This is just for your orientation, who knows. Then after this, is it training? No. And after this, we shall continue and I will take you to the Kremlin. This is famous museum. You heard about it, did you? Does anybody know what Kremlin means? Kremlin means fortress. Ancient fortress. We have many Kremlins in Russia, but only Moscow Kremlin was destined to be so famous. So we are going to the Kremlin, and it's going to be a walking tour in the Kremlin. It lasts about 2 hours. So you have to be ready to walk a lot. I know you will be tired, but it's worth it. And we go inside the Kremlin. Kremlin is official residence of our president, who is Vladimir Putin. And we were planning to have some little meeting with him with cup of tea, but we cannot arrange it. First of all, we have no time, and even if he offered, I would refuse at your opinion, because we have no time for this. We just pass by the building where he works. We shall see his official residence, but we shall see, take pictures, but ignore it. We don't go inside. And besides, Mr. Putin is now in, if I'm not mistaken, he's at Hamburg for J20, so he's busy too. So this part of the tour we don't have. And we do not regret. And most of it will be historical part of the Kremlin. It has wonderful museums. The Kremlin used to be the residence of Russian rulers already from the 15th century, official residence when Moscow became the capital of Russia. And of course, Kremlin has a lot of interesting buildings. Beautiful cathedrals, which were used for ceremonies, for religious services. We're going to see one of them. Now these cathedrals are museums. They are not active anymore. And I will show you a wonderful museum in the Kremlin, which is called Armory Chamber, which contains a wonderful collection of Tsar's regalia and a lot of interesting historical things. This is our plan in the Kremlin. And after this tour, which, as I said, will last about 2 hours, it will be a walking tour, we shall be ready by this time. It will be approximately 6 o'clock to start back for the train station, because it takes some time to get to the train station, and this is our plan. Now I wanted to ask you, do you agree with this plan?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
In Russian you should say da.
Da. Da.
Okay, say it in Russian. Do you agree with this plan?
Da.
Da, wonderful, very nice. And some little logistics, so we shall be going to many places, we shall be leaving the bus on and off. Every time I will be telling you, but just know that bus is our bus. And that's why if you leave the bus and you need to leave something on the bus, it's perfectly okay. Our driver, Dima, will be here and they will be safe, right? Okay, now weather-like. According to morning weathercast, it's going to be nice weather. A little clouds, but not rain. That's what they said. But weather in Moscow is quite unpredictable. By the way, a week before you came, we had cold weather, hard to believe, and rain non-stop. Can you imagine? And this summer is very, very bad in Moscow. So maybe especially for your arrival, we have sunshine, and they say it's going to be something like 75 Fahrenheit, which is nice. But still, I recommend. So you will need your sunglasses, I hope. At least we miss the sun. And still might be some showers. Who knows? The weather is very unpredictable now. All of a sudden, like in May, we had terrible hurricane. We never had anything like this before in this part of Moscow. Anyway, we hope for good weather. And when you leave Moscow, please don't take it away with you to St. Petersburg. They will have their own. And now we can start the tour. So since you said yes, da, we start according to the plan, and right now we are going to Red Square. The train station which we left is called Leningradsky because it connects Moscow with Leningrad, which is former name of St. Petersburg, and we left the train station behind, and I have to tell you that we are almost in the city center or downtown. If you look at the map of Moscow, Moscow has a radial circular layout. It has many streets which are in shape of circles. Why it happened so? Because when Moscow was started, remember the first wall of fortifications, fortress, Kremlin, was built. And then with the growth of the city, other walls appeared, which later were turned into streets. And there are many radial streets which lead to the city center. So the train station is not far. And normally, I said normally, it takes about 20-25 minutes to get to Red Square from here. But I said normally and not by chance, because now Moscow is something special. You might have heard that at the end of the 90s we started new economy in Russia, a new political system, which is now called capitalism. Instead of socialism, Moscow became the capital of the first capitalist state on the territory of the former Soviet Union, and this reflected on Moscow specifically. Moscow being quite slow and not so busy center became in one day the center for businesses, the center for interest of people to come up to work here. And Moscow today is like a picture of the whole country, reflecting this capitalist approach to everything, which is what? Finance, money, business. And that's why in Moscow, unlike before, first of all, we have traffic jams. This is negative that we are quite, but nothing can be done. If you ask the Muscovites some 20 years ago what a traffic jam is, they would not be able to understand what you're talking about. Today they are systematic in Moscow. And this is exacerbated by the fact that we have a lot of construction and reconstruction in Moscow. At the moment, I don't know why they do it in every place of Moscow simultaneously. We have to ask our mayor about it. But you will see a lot of construction sites. They're changing sidewalks, they're changing facades of the buildings. This is money. They want to make them look much better because everything now is private here, unlike before. Before it, everything was governmental. Look to the building to the right. We have here an office which belongs to one of the richest companies in Russia, which produces what? Oil company. When you see something really monumental and rich, sometimes they have flags and they are very, very rich. We have them in Russia, and Russia is based now on selling oil and gas. And this is how the budget of Russia is formed. It is, of course, not so good because we have to develop other sectors of economy, but this is another story. I just wanted to tell you that you came here to the country which is now called Russian Federation, with capital in Moscow. The capital has 12 million people. Russian Federation has now 145 million. And before we had what? The Soviet Union, which was much larger because we had 16 states comprising the Soviet Union, and the population at that time was 245 million people. So we lost 100 million, and they are now living independent states, which are former republics or states. Are you visiting Tallinn? Yes, you were there, so you know Estonia was part of Russia before. Though Estonian people do not want to remember this, about this period of time. When I first came there, and I was from Russia, Muscovite, I could hear Estonian guide, and she called Russians as occupants, something like this. And to some extent it offended me because I'm Russian, a simple citizen, and I never was an occupant. But this is the approach, because as I believe now, they were under Soviet yoke for quite a while. Soviet regime has very negative connotation. But I have to tell you that even in Russia we reassess the history a lot. Even reassess the role of our leaders, such as Vladimir Lenin, who was the founder of the revolution and who was the leader of the country in the 20s of the last century, and later he was succeeded by Joseph Stalin, and his leadership was marked by terrible things, especially repressions. Maybe you heard about them. Anyway, of course, Soviet period was not easy for the country, and when everything changed in the country, people welcomed it with such enthusiasm because we got political freedoms, we got openness, and people now can speak openly about different things without not being afraid that they would be punished. Of course, all this is wonderful, and we hope that we're still on the democratic way. But the economy, we changed the economy, and economic reforms were extremely painful for the people because they lost a lot of social values, and they had to start their career again. You understand, when you're over 50, how can you possibly change your life in one day, where you can take the money, what you're going to do, you didn't get adjusted. Anyway, we will have this problem, but of course most important thing which happened, that as a result of ill-made privatization in the country, which was made practically in one day, a group of people concentrated all the wealth of the country in their hands and became enormously rich, and we call them oligarchs or tycoons. And they are keeping the hands all these companies and everything. They're really rich, I mean it. And the rest of the population, of course, live in rather low income brackets, let's put it this way. Now the system is balancing, and a lot is done to improve the situation, but still life is not easy, let's put it this way. Though Moscow maybe is not so explicit, because Moscow is the capital. All businesses are here. People who live in Moscow, they are employed. The salaries in Moscow, if we can talk about salaries, because we mainly talk about incomes, they are much higher than in every other part of Russia. So Moscow in some ways becoming very cosmopolitan, like this. Just know you came to Russian Federation, which is a new country. And I would like just to show you construction site to the left. You know they're doing here. They're changing the tiles for the sidewalks. Why do they do it simultaneously on two sides? I have no idea. By the way, the mayor of Moscow is being elected once every 4 or 5 years, I don't remember. And every time you remember this when you go for elections next time. But it is also easily forgotten, and sometimes you forget. But as a result, they say Moscow will become so beautiful. But of course we have difficulties. Why I'm talking about it? Because during our short tour, unfortunately, we'll have to spend some time for this. And there is no other way to get to the place of destination than just wait in the traffic jams. But at the same time,